Hey guys, good Monday morning. Welcome back to the Huddle. First, I have to ask Sean, how are you surviving this morning after last night's defeat?
Look, I think we had a good season. We got to rebuild over the offseason. It was not our best effort last night. I think the offensive line pretty clearly didn't hold up, didn't give Drake the support he needed. And, I wish the Seahawks the best, but we'll be back next year.
Look at that.
Hey.
Yeah, but Sean, deep down, this season was a win, though. You did not think
great turnaround. To go from 13 to 13-4. I mean, massive.
Yeah.
And a lot of promise, young team, but it was disappointing sort of just where the holes were, right?
Yeah.
That was the big thing, is that wasn't where I would have expected us to fall short. That offensive line, I think, someone needed to remind them there was a game.
I will spare the world my analysis of the game, which I don't have.
I know before we get into it, I normally really do actually enjoy the commercials and laughing.
Okay, sure, commercials.
But there was like, I feel like if you want a job and you are creative, Madison Avenue's got to be hiring, because those sucked. There wasn't one commercial that I thought was particularly like compelling or funny or interesting. I thought they were all like zzz.
I know there were some good ones. I like the Family Farm one. I
was going to say, I liked the Family Farm one. I didn't watch many because I stopped watching after the first 3-pointer a few minutes into the game. But I did catch that one. Dan.
That's the 3-pointer. She's right. Yeah. It is a field goal is 3 points. 3-pointer.
Yeah.
Kick thing.
Wait, what was the best?
What's your other favorite one, Dan, commercial-wise?
I know where we're going to show it here. Mike Tyson.
Okay. We are going to get to that.
I thought that was good.
One. Put a pin in it.
Rachel, what was the best meal in the Bade household yesterday? What went over best or came out best?
My personal favorite is the jelly meatballs, but the rest of my family doesn't like the jelly meatballs. I don't understand, guys.
So that's a win for you? Do you just?
Can I give you a hint? I'm going to tell you something right now, and maybe this is just me. I'm a very psychological eater. So like, if you tell me, hey, that has broccoli and whatever, and I'll be like, I don't like it. Right. The second that you say jelly meatball to me, I'm like, it doesn't. Just say I've got really good.
I don't like jelly either, Sean. I'm not a jelly person.
It's not my point. Just don't tell anyone what the ingredients are. Say, I've got amazing meatballs. Would you like to try one?
Okay. We'll just call them meatballs.
Right.
Okay.
The second that you tell me like what's in something, no bueno.
Just reminds me of SNL, sweaty balls. Yep.
And I'm going to have those for lunch today too. And probably dinner. There you go. Okay. So today's 5, we will obviously talk about the Super Bowl and the politics of the Super Bowl and also the Olympics. A lot of talk about what's going on with some of the Olympians and some blowback here at home due to some of the criticism they had overseas. We'll talk about Maha, as Dan just alluded to, big sort of 1-year reunion for RFK in the Maha movement, where it is. We'll talk about this new Oppo dump on Pete Buttigieg. People already sort of, laying the traps for him for 2028. We'll discuss the Texas Senate primary and Republicans' last-ditch effort to get the president to endorse John Cornyn. Will he do it? Will he not? And then for Media Monday, we've got a couple of things, namely the ouster of Will Lewis, who, let's be honest, no one is going to particularly miss in the journalism world. But we will digest that and a lot of other things in the media segment. Today for the Daybook, the House and Senate are returning this evening. Obviously, all eyes are on Friday and this deadline to fund Department of Homeland Security and get to some sort of ICE deal. Democrats released their legislative text of their 10 asks last night. I don't know how many pages it is, but I imagine it's a very long document. And again, we are 5 days out, so not exactly looking good for a deal. Dan, you still bullish?
Yeah, look, they said the staff in the White House were talking this weekend. I think there's the public, posturing, and then there's the fact that there are private conversations happening, and that if the latter wasn't occurring, I would be bearish. But the fact that the people are talking, I still feel bullish.
Sean?
No way.
And by the way, I should note that Brian Schatz, who is going to be the next Democratic whip, he said that Dems are not going to support another CR for more time. Now, maybe he just meant himself, and we still see a chunk of Democrats break and side with Republicans to buy more time. Because at this point, even if they come up with a deal on Thursday, process-wise, there's going to be at least some sort of DHS shutdown for a little bit. So we'll continue to follow that. Ghislaine Maxwell is testifying from prison, virtual deposition ahead of the House Oversight Committee. Her lawyer says she's going to plead the fifth, so don't expect a lot of headlines out of that. But we should also note that members of Congress are headed to the DOJ, where they're going to get to see unredacted versions of the Epstein files. And just sort of, I flag this because sometimes members, when they see things that are unredacted, they have ways of releasing that information publicly, whether on the floor, whether some sort of committee vote. So we could see some fallout from that. At 3 o'clock, the president's going to be participating in a TV interview. 5:30, he's got a policy meeting. And just a little housekeeping note, not a little one, a significant one, I should say. We are going to be doing a State of the Union special episode where you're going to be able to hear from us ahead of the State of the Union. We're going to talk about what to expect. We will be with you through the State of the Union. So you'll hear our commentary a little bit in the background as you're watching it with us. And then after the show, we're going to digest it. So mark your calendars. That is what.
Watch it with us.
Yeah.
Stay with us.
Yeah. It's going to be fun.
Rachel will make some
Right
jelly
on the dinner
meatballs and
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right. I'll make some jelly meatballs for the occasion. February 24th, and the next morning is going to be really exhausting, but it'll be fun. Okay, guys, do me a favor right now. Hit the subscribe button on your screen. And if you've already done that, hit the like button a number of times. And if you are not on our YouTube, go to @the DC Huddle and subscribe right now. Again, trying to juice our numbers, get them up, and all this helps us. So thank you very much. And before we jump in, let's do a quick word from our sponsor, Sean. Cozy
I'm telling you, last night, getting ready for the game, what did everyone do? Start to get ready for that Cozy Earth bubble blanket. It's like last night was like literally the ad wrote itself, getting in the pajamas ready to go to watch it, getting the shirt on. I mean, I'm telling you, the best thing about Cozy Earth is it covers you from morning till night. You got the joggers on, the pants if you're going outside, although I do wear the joggers outside too. But then later in the day, you switch into the pajamas. As you guys know, I throw the eye mask on. I love it. It's my favorite one. But I mean, that's the thing. Cozy Earth has something for everyone for every part of the day, morning, noon, night. So I'm not kidding. I literally get a kick every once in a while when I realize how much I'm wearing Cozy Earth, like at different segments of the day. And the cool part is Valentine's Day is just around the corner. If you want to get something for your loved one and get a little something for yourself, right now you can get the Cozy Earth pajamas and get one free. If you go to Cozy Earth, get those pajamas and use our promo code Huddle BOGO, BOGO, buy one, get one. So you get a little something for yourself. It's a little selfish, but I'm pro that. So go to CozyEarth.com, use promo code Huddle BOGO to get those pajamas. I'm telling you, you cannot go wrong, and they last all years. Flowers die quick. Cozy Earth all year long. CozyEarth.com, Huddle BOGO.
And I'm also going to tell you guys, I got another package in the mail a couple days ago. It was a box of CBD goodies from CB Distillery, which I'm wondering, which one was the first one you think that I tried in terms of all the products in that box?
I'm
Just
thinking
guess.
you tried this one right there, the gummy.
Oils?
I tried. That might be it. That actually might be it. Yes, the sleep aid, guys. The sleep.
All right.
Well, there's two. There's the sleep aid drops and then the gummies.
Yes. There you go. Right there, you got props. So 90% of CBD customers say they sleep better with CBD, and obviously that's tough to beat because when you sleep better, everything is easier. You handle stress better. You have more energy. You just feel good, and you perform great. So I sometimes have trouble going to sleep because, of course, I'm Twitter scrolling and reading news late into the evening and all that blue light, and then I just can't fall asleep. So I tried one of those Friday night. It tasted good, and I got to tell you, I was out within 30 minutes. I slept for a full 9 hours, woke up Saturday feeling fantastic. So if you guys have a New Year's resolution to get better sleep, go to cbdistillery.com and use my code HUDDLE for 25% off. They've got things for not just sleep, but also stress and mood and pain after your workouts too. We should note that product availability depends on your state regulation, but you can, of course, look and go shop. Go to cbdistillery.com and use my code HUDDLE for 25% off. Then you can sleep awesome like I did Friday night.
Boom.
Okay, let's jump in, guys. So we saw a stark split screen of two Americas last night with the Super Bowl. You had the actual halftime show. We had this sort of colorful Bad Bunny tribute to Hispanic culture, dancing in the cornfields, a backdrop that looked like Puerto Rico, and not a single word, at least that I caught, in English. And then you had Kid Rock's concert put on by Turning Point USA, starting with the Star Spangled Banner, played with an electric guitar, tons of red, white, and blue streamers. 6 million people ended up watching that as well. And this, just to me, it really underscores, guys, the very huge divide that we have in our country right now. You saw the president attacking Bad Bunny after the halftime show. Let's pull up that first element. He called it one of the worst performances ever. Nobody understands a word this guy is saying, and the dancing is disgusting. Sean, I know you were sort of juicing the views for Kid Rock on Twitter.
I'll take credit for all 6 million.
There you go. But is there a risk to slamming Bad Bunny like this at a time when Republicans are struggling with Latino voters?
No. First of all, I don't think, I mean, to me, I read a lot of this commentary, like somehow Bad Bunny's a proxy. Remember, Bad Bunny was also the guy who came out after that Madison Square Garden comedian late in the campaign made that sort of offhanded joke, and it didn't do anything then. I don't think anybody cares what Bad Bunny thinks politically, meaning that like if he comes out but I also don't think anyone's going to tune in for him. So all Bad Bunny has done is a lot of people want to watch him, but I don't think they're watching him because of his political views, but a lot of people tuned him out because of his political views. I was one of those people. I went and turned on TBN. So, I mean, I know that the YouTube numbers were through the roof. They hit 6 million. And that's just on YouTube. TBN live streamed it. Real America's Voice live streamed it. OAN live streamed it. So just on YouTube alone, 6 million. So I know like some people in the media mocked it like, oh, it still dwarfed it. But to have 6 million plus, let's call it 7 million, just generously, turn off NBC and go watch something else is a big number. Like that's undeniable. And so to me, when you're the NFL and your goal is to get, and they hype that thing all show. Stay tuned for the halftime show. Coming up the halftime show. Coming up from the halftime show. I think NBC knew that they had a problem, or in the NFL, but they like when you choose division, and that's what they chose. They knew that this guy was divisive. I don't think that like you can turn around and say, did Republicans do anything? The NFL made a choice, and NBC made a choice. Republicans just said, great, let's show some alternatives to it. It wasn't just Kid Rock. Gabby Barrett was fantastic. I loved watching her perform. I mean, like, it was actually a really nice show. Kid Rock talked about his love for Jesus. I mean, it was, I think it was a great segment, and I was proud to go up, to turn TBN on and watch it there.
So before I come to you, Dan, because I know you have very different opinions on this, I just want to flag that there are some Republicans out there who are criticizing the criticism from MAGA. We heard from Kash Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins, was online saying that, yes, she understands this is an unpopular take on the right, but she says Republicans need to unite and get on better messaging because this branding is fantastic and allows all Democrats to get behind it. There's a couple either former campaign or former administration officials who are out there basically criticizing all the MAGA criticism of the halftime show and warning that there could be this blowback. I understand you're saying, Sean, you don't think that will be the case. Dan, I mean, let's get your take on this too, because I do wonder, and I know you're going to come at this from a very different angle, but like, is there a risk to alienating like independent swing voters with a halftime show that doesn't have any English in it? I mean, like, I just like, is this the new woke? I don't know. Like what?
No, I think 90% of, maybe not 90, 70% of America does not watch the Super Bowl or the Olympics or any of this and with a red or blue tribal hat. I know the bases do, and they get really fired up. And that to me is kind of like, it's more sad than anything else that like, this is the world we live in. When an athlete does the Trump YMCA dance, blue sky goes bananas that, you shouldn't be doing this. When, Bad Bunny or somebody speaks out, they go nuts on the other side. But I think, look, I have family in Puerto Rico, and I immediately recognized, okay, this is a celebration of like Puerto Rican street culture. Okay, it's not what I grew up around, I also kind of like Trump. My first thought was there's a little risque here. Like some of the grinding and some of the, I didn't know what some of the words in Spanish meant, but thanks to our children who all take Spanish, I learned very quickly what some of those words meant. But okay, that's not, I also get a little squeamish with some other kind of cultural, stuff that is out there in these type of settings. If I had my druthers to be the Rolling Stones all the time, because that's what I like. But to say it's un-American, or to say like I'm not going to tune in because it's this person has said something about my team or against the other team, politically speaking, I just, athletes and entertainers have a right to express themselves. He actually did not get into, explicitly. I think giving the Emmy to the little kid might have been an indirect political message, but I have no problem with the NFL doing it. I know why they did it. He is the most popular entertainer in the world right now. He is an incredibly popular entertainer with a lot of Americans these days. So the NFL is all about money and growing market share. That's all they care about. So they obviously made the calculation that the positives outweighed the negatives. But I wish Trump would not go on and slam this stuff, just like I wish Democrats wouldn't slam, entertainers and athletes when they support Trump. I mean,
but the difference that I had here is this. If Bad Bunny had just said, hey guys, I'm going to use this performance just to perform, like I'm going to sing to and celebrate America and the Super Bowl or whatever, full stop, there wouldn't have been. He almost wanted the controversy. So he goes to the Grammys 7 days before and says, before I get to everything, ice out. He creates and builds up a sense of what am I going to do? Even a lot of the Democrats on the Sunday shows were like, we expect him to come out tonight. There's no way that he can't. The expectation built up was that because of the Grammys, he was going to do something. Had he just come out and said prior to this, guys, tonight's about the Super Bowl and I want to perform and sing and unify everyone, I think people like me might have just not tuned out. But I was like, I'm not going to be part of a little sideshow here. So that was on them. They almost intentionally did it.
I will say I was expecting more. I thought for sure we were going to see more of a political discussion or finger to the right and to the Republicans, given that Democrats were, like you said on the Sunday shows, predicting he would do something like this. But let's move on a little bit, because that's not the only place where we saw sports and politics mixed this weekend. Over the weekend, we saw Olympians getting political, with one Olympic skier, Hunter Hess, saying he has mixed emotions about representing the Stars and Stripes. Let's watch this video.
I feel heartbroken about what's happened in the United States when, I'm pretty sure you're referencing ICE and some of the protests and things like that. I think that as a country, we need to focus on respecting everybody's rights and making sure that we're treating our citizens as well as anybody with love and respect. And I hope that when people look at athletes compete in the Olympics, they realize that that's the America that we're trying to represent.
It brings up mixed emotions to represent the U.S. right now, I think. It's a little hard. There's obviously a lot going on that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I think a lot of people aren't. If it aligns with my moral values, I feel like I'm representing it. Just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything that's going on in the U.S. So yeah, I just kind of want to do it for my friends and my family.
So right after that video, the president attacked that Olympian, the second one, Hunter Hess, as a loser, capital L, on Truth Social. You saw people like Megyn Kelly, Rick Grinnell saying that he should basically stop competing and come home. Dan, you said in our text this weekend that, sports and politics, there's always sort of this overlap for decades. There always has been. And look, it is a free country, but you're also representing the United States on the world stage. Is this a bad look?
Look, yes and no, which is anytime you're criticizing your own country, it's not the best look. Democrats got enraged when Republicans under the Biden era would trash Joe Biden and the country at the time. I mean, just calling it a disgrace and we're losing. I mean, no Olympic athlete is a loser. You get there, you earn that right to compete on the world stage. So just by definition, you are not a loser. It's not a great look, but go back to like 1968 when you had the Americans on the podium raise the black fist, right? That had to do with the social rights movement. You've always had athletes that have used these platforms at times to make political statements, writing messages on their cleats, I said, doing the Trump YMCA dance, right? Like people are sending messages. So I don't love criticism of our own country. I think the context of that is they were asked, by the media overseas, what do you think about this stuff? Again, I think most Americans don't watch the Olympics for politics. And I think they just kind of shake their heads when the two tribes go bananas about what somebody says.
Sean, if the shoe was on the other foot and it was the Biden administration and you had Olympians out there saying the president is incompetent, he's too old, he's not really leading the White House, wouldn't MAGA cheer?
I think a lot of it probably would. But here's my 2 cents on this. One, there was his name, John Rockerdan, the pitcher. Like, this was a clown question, bro. I think was his. Like, I think that we can't forget the media component of this. Asking an Olympic athlete whether they're proud of that. I mean, like, to me, I was like, you guys are literally stoking this. Yeah. Again, everybody has a right to ask and answer. I mean, like, let's not forget, regardless, so I don't regret. I mean, like, everyone's got those rights. So full stop. But the media was trying to create the moment. And then secondly, I'm kind of the camp that, like, if you're not proud of the country, then don't represent it. Don't, this whole, what did he say? My moral values, like, who are you? Like, I just looked at that kid and I was like, what a punk. Like, just, if you don't want to answer the question, say, listen, I'm here to snowboard or ski or whatever I'm doing, and that's my focus. I'm proud to be an American or something, full stop. Like, they get media training. If you want to get into, like, you're not proud of everything in America, then don't compete for America. You're representing the country.
Athletes, again, athletes of both sides have been doing this, since the beginning of time. And if you watch the full interview, the tone of their voice, to me, you can see them, like, as you say, Sean, you would hope they would have a media trainer who would say, hey, stay away from this when you're overseas. But you can see them kind of thinking it through and talking it out, and you can kind of feel the emotion in them. Like, to me, it wasn't a trash talking thing. It was like, as somebody who's not prepared, just having that conversation before the world, and you're like, ooh.
Let me put a pin in it and put it this way. If they have a right to speak their mind, I have a right to speak mine. And so
that's actually how I feel.
And so my point is, look, because everyone goes, oh, don't criticize. Wait, so they can criticize America, they can criticize, and I'm supposed to sit back and say, so my answer is,
you can say what you want.
Right, no. I know that. But I'm just saying that, like, I love everyone who says, like, oh, let them, great. And my answer is, I think the kid's a punk. I don't think that if you're not proud of representing the country, go find a different way to go compete. No one made you compete in the Olympics. You're representing the country of origin that you're from. This isn't like some international competition. There's plenty of those. Go represent yourself at a competition and win a record. But you're winning, you're carrying and representing the flag of the United States of America. If you're not proud of it, go somewhere else.
Sean, just very quickly, you think the president should have called him a loser?
I will say this. I'm not, like, that's not my style. Like, I think, he could have just said, I wish that, like, he could have kept it.
Be proud of America. I
right,
mean,
be proud of America,
but
look, again, the president has a right to speak out, and the president has a right to make it very clear that, like, if you're not proud, he didn't say he wasn't proud of, like, Trump or anything like that. He said, I'm America. And I just, to me, that was, so
I'm with you. I mean, in the macro, you should always be proud to be an American.
You can be proud to be an American and not agree with every policy.
I mean, that's the beauty, by the way, which is to say, if the kid had just said, look, I'm actually really proud that in America we can disagree with, we don't have to agree on every policy. That's what makes this country so great. And full stop. And you would have gotten the same point across without demeaning the country.
Right.
Well, as I say, this has become a thing. If you go on Blue Sky, they're not proud of America today. Go back to 2 years ago.
Michelle Obama's not proud of America.
Can I just say, Dan, I didn't actually realize the YMCA was considered controversial with Blue Sky now. I love the YMCA.
No. It's that, look, some athletes, especially right after Trump got elected last year, were and they would do the, and it was a tribute to Trump, which, again, I have no problem with. You want to do it?
Totally.
Do it.
The funny part about this is half the time, I didn't think it was a tribute to Trump. I just thought they were getting in on a meme, to be honest.
So all right, guys, let's move on. Enough with the sports and politics as much as I love this topic. Let's talk about Maha. So The godfather of Maha having a big week this week. RFK, HHS secretary, giving a big speech today to the Heritage Foundation, marking 1 year since his confirmation. I thought technically that anniversary is the 13th. It's just amazing to me how much America has changed in terms of health perceptions. And yes, with RFK, there has been some controversy with the vaccine changes, et cetera. But like, it's also some common sense stuff, right? Less processed foods or no processed foods, eat real food. And they obviously had a big moment last night at the Super Bowl. As you said, Dan, let's play the Maha commercial.
The name was Denise. She died of obesity at 25. She had a heart attack. I was so fat and nasty. I would eat anything. I was like 345 pounds. A quart of ice cream every hour. I had so much self-hate when I was like that. I just wanted to kill myself. We're the most powerful country in the world, and we have the most obese, fudgy people. Something has to be done about processed food in this country.
Dan, some Democrats are out there calling RFK a charlatan and attacking him, but you have warned that they need to take a lesson from this, right? Like, just give us your thinking on this. Like, what is the Democratic posture right now? It doesn't need to change on Maha.
Yeah, it does need to change because I've said this before. There's so much of what the Maha movement is about that is propelled by regular moms and dads in suburban neighborhoods and across the country who have asked questions about why do my kids suddenly have digestive issues, and why do I personally have digestive issues? What about these vaccine schedules? There's so much going on. If I ask questions, I'm kind of shut down. It was an organic movement powered by Americans asking questions, and I think while some of it is not, like what's happening with measles, the outbreak is not good. I think there are areas to say, wait, time out. It may be a little bit more of lacking of science and kind of personal opinion. There's a lot that Robert F. Kennedy, that used to be the Democratic Party in the 1960s, 1970s. We questioned authority. We questioned institutions. We, were saying change is good and embracing new things. And I think RFK deserves credit for that. I've said this before. Trump deserves credit for hugging RFK. I think all politics is personal. Trump recognized this coalition could be helpful. And RFK does deserve credit for some of these common sense changes. He does.
I have been totally amazed by the transformation in the Republican Party on some of these issues, Sean, because I remember a time like when I was covering taxes, like over a decade and a half ago, where Democrats were trying to, levy taxes on sugary drinks because they were trying to find a way to sort of regulate kids drinking soda, and conservatives were always sort of hitting back at them saying, no, that like there's not a government role here.
Hello, Sarah Palin.
Right? It's different.
Well,
how did that transformation happen?
Well, there's a couple things. One, there's a nuance in the policy, right? As you point out, Democrats wanted to raise taxes.
That's true.
It's inherently, whether, again, I think that's part of the problem in the Republicans is that, not problem, like part of what we do is we'll be against any taxes. That's a good thing. But I think, and you're not hearing, what RFK and those guys are doing isn't talking about taxes or government. It's informing you, making you a better consumer. No one's saying you can't buy a bag of Cheetos. It's saying if you buy a bag of Cheetos, you probably will have digestive issues. They are probably not great for you. They might cause some additional issues or, whatever, Doritos. I think that's the difference, is that this movement is about transparency and informing people about how to make better decisions, not dictating things by the government or raising taxes. This has been a huge issue, I think. And the other thing that has come to light, and I am sort of view myself as one of these people, that for the longest time, when you were told whether you were trying to get healthy or lose weight, you'd look at a package and you'd say, oh, it says heart healthy. So therefore it's got to be good for you because the government is giving us this imprimatur of it's good for you. And you start realizing through the work of Maha and Bobby Kennedy, et cetera, that no, actually that wasn't good for you. That's not healthy for you. That's not going to improve. And I think that's been the big difference, is that this idea of transparency and information has been huge. So this is tonight. Today he will give a speech at Heritage. There'll be another event tonight celebrating Bobby's, 1 year in office. But this is a big deal. And as Dan said, it can't be overstated that like Bobby was championing this when he was running as a Democrat, right? And Trump embraced it and recognized the moment and merged Maha and MAGA and said, hey, this can be, this was if you ever go back in time, and I love going down these rabbit holes, but Kodak, when I was growing up, you would go drop your film off at a little booth and then come back 5 days later. They bought the first digital camera and thought, this is never going anywhere, right? And literally the world transformed and Kodak got left in the dust. I believe that Democrats did the same thing with Bobby, where they sort of mocked the movement. They didn't see it. Bobby went and did this. And the next thing you know, here's what happened. This was theirs and they could have embraced it and they chose not to.
Well, and don't forget, Trump won by 1.7%. Most people would say the RFK movement's about 3 to 4%. I mean, Trump may owe his victory to Robert F. Kennedy.
Yeah, that's really
and
amazing.
Also, what about Dan's point? This is a demographic that Republicans have struggled with, right?
Yep.
Women, young women in particular. And I think that, like, frankly, I've been advocating this for a while. Like the next version of Maha, I think, is social media.
I agree.
Republicans, whoever gets first to that flagpole and says, I'm going to be the champion of defending kids from social media and the horrible impacts that it's having on the next generation of Americans, is going to own, like, between Maha and social media. If Republicans can get both of those issues, they will be unstoppable because that's a key demographic.
And Rahm Emanuel's been all over that, to his credit.
Yep. Right. Rahm gets the Democrat that's closest to embracing either Maha or what we're talking about here, Sean, with social media. Dan, is there one that stands out?
Rahm he's written op-eds about it. He talks about it in his stump speech. I totally agree with Sean. Every parent with kids between, 10 and 18 combats the challenge of social media, the pressures it puts on people about their images and, stuff they have or don't have. And it is, and it's pretty scientific. It's pretty factual, the addictive nature of social media and the intent
suicide.
To addict children,
suicide rates,
everything
what social media has done to the next generation of Americans, learning, self-esteem, suicide rates, anorexia. You go down the list.
Great.
There is, and you talk to any parent who has given their kid social media and they all regret it. They all say, I had to, or how can I fix this? Or I've lost my kid. I believe that we're going to look back in history and realize that this was a moment that we really screwed.
And this is where, for Democrats, just to be really political about this, the fact that, and I'm being serious here, the fact that J.D. Vance is so close to Silicon Valley, it is an opportunity to paint the barons of Silicon Valley have owned the Republican Party. That is the power of what Rahm is trying to frame, and he's smart.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm glad these days. I'm glad my daughter is 3 and still a long way from that, because I'm hoping by the time she's of age, it will be different. Right. But I don't know.
I hope so. But I will tell you again, we delayed this as long as possible.
Yeah.
There's one thing that you talk to every parent and they wish they had waited just a little bit longer. Phones changed the dynamic between parents and their kids. They changed how kids do. It's, like I said,
and the problem is, like, when your daughter comes home from a school dance or whatever, and they're like, everybody else has their phone. The first time one of our kids came home from a dance and said, you're ruining my life, I don't have Snapchat, everyone sat around, boys and girls, and snapped at each other. My wife and I said, gosh darn it, go talk to the girl. And they're like, but that's not how it works anymore. And we looked at ourselves and said, there's the world as we wish it would be, and there's the world as it is. And your kids say, everybody else has it. And you try to hold out. And at some point you're like, fine, we're not going to ruin your life.
It's so different.
Your life.
Yeah. I think I got my first phone when I was 13, but there was nothing like this, right? It was literally because, like, I'm traveling for ballet and I need to reach family. And now it's just like right at your like your fingertips, like all social media just changing everything. Anyway, okay, let's talk 2028. So we saw a big oppo dump on Pete Buttigieg this weekend. Democratic critics, most likely shopping around this notion that while he might be a good communicator, he's a terrible leader. He couldn't cut through the bureaucracy, saying he was awful as transportation secretary. basically he was tasked with overseeing $500 billion worth of the infrastructure bill's projects. A huge chunk of those, that money was never spent. There are even some Biden officials who say he fell down on modernizing the FAA, and that lack of attention may have led in part to the helicopter plane crash that led to 67 people dying here in Washington, D.C. Dan, we are a long way out from 2028, but stories like this matter. Why?
Yeah, well, and I'll just say, I think some Democrats listen to Sean Spicer because he's been saying both of those things about Mayor Pete for a while. Look, part of what happens in this kind of what we call the shadow primary years out is you try to create a narrative about yourself, a positive one, and a negative one about those that you view as threats. And you might say, well, why does this matter? Well, the press begins to kind of form an image of you. And then whenever they go to write about you or they're fed stories, they kind of have a filter that they put everything through. And then donors read those press stories, volunteers read the press stories. And so when you go to kind of build your campaign, you either want wind at your back or you try to get wind in the faces of others. Look, for Mayor Pete, there's two things. One is he has been at about 0% with Black voters since he started on the national stage. And here we are 7-8 years later, he's still at 0%. The other thing is his one big, kind of moment here of being transportation secretary, the fact that Democrats are now pushing that he was a failure, that he was incompetent. One of the things Democrats want to run on in 28 is Trump is incompetent. We are competent. It's what Biden tried to do in 20, and he was successful in 20 with it. And if you're tagged as incompetent, as the stage is too big for you, you can't handle this, it's a killer in our party. So look, sometimes these narratives are out there. Trump had one in 2012 that he was a clown. He couldn't do it. But boy, he on the ground at CPAC and other things, it was a different story. So it's not always a cause and effect. But you can see people are the sharks within the Democratic Party are trying to almost knock Mayor Pete out before this thing starts.
Sean, not that this would ever happen, but if you were advising Mayor Pete, how would you counter this and what would you do to lay the groundwork for 2028? What do you need to do?
Well, let me take you back a minute. At the beginning of the Biden administration, I actually thought that Pete Buttigieg was the future, right? Yeah. He served in Afghanistan. He's very articulate. He had the perfect resume. He's gay. He's pretty good looking. I mean, seriously, he is. He literally was what I thought, checked enough of the boxes for the Dems that it was like, okay, this is a guy we can get on board with. I will say this. He squandered 4 years as transportation secretary. He had a boatload of cash. Right. So he could have spread this around. He has a big problem with Black voters, key constituencies of the Democratic Party. He could have been going to cities and handing out tons of cash in key constituencies and communities that would have benefited him. But I think when you look at the overall portfolio of the Secretary of Transportation, highway, seaway, airspace, he failed in every one of them. Every single one of them. There was a port strike. There was a highway problem. He failed in modernization of the FAA and air safety. Every single aspect of that job, he failed. And this is why I think the Democrats are now trying to stop him coming out of the gate. The only option that he has, and I've been shocked that he hasn't been out there more, is the one thing that he has is his ability to sort of articulate a message better than anybody else, probably. And he hasn't done, he's making a couple contributions and doing some campaign stops for congressional, but he has not been at the forefront. And maybe it's because he knows what the oppo is going to be against him. But if I were him, I'd be a constant presence on MSNBC and independent media and podcasts on the left to try to build up that goodwill of I'm the guy, take the lane that Gavin Newsom's trying to take, which is the anti-Trump guy. But Dan's right. These guys are going to stop him before he even gets out of the gate this cycle.
Well, and what's fascinating is in the same story. So, and this is where you kind of start putting pieces together. Who might have been providing this opposition was a story that Josh Shapiro, running for re-election in Pennsylvania, got $2.5 million from Michael Bloomberg, who is the wealthiest man in New York City, estimated to be worth $100 billion, obviously has been very involved in politics now the last, 20 years. And, the story is that Bloomberg likes Shapiro. Bloomberg hasn't endorsed him for president, but has said good things. Shapiro and Buttigieg occupy the same lane.
That's a good point.
And so you put that story together because you want the big donors in New York City and in Hollywood. You want the media to say that Shapiro is a buy, to use a Wall Street term. Buttigieg is somebody you want to think about selling. And it is a shadow primary. They're boxing against each other, trying to build that momentum. And Shapiro, has the book tour, and he's saying, hey, the big money, the smart money is with me.
Let's move on because we still have 2 more topics. So let's talk Texas. We are 3 weeks out
Yep.
from
March 3rd,
from the Texas primary. And over the weekend, CNN had this good deep dive about how Senate Republicans are ratcheting up pressure on the president to endorse John Cornyn down there, try to get off the sidelines. And the argument is save us potentially hundreds of millions of dollars if you come out and help him get him over the finish line. This is money we can use in other races at a time when Democrats are expanding the map. Sean, is the president gonna do it?
Well, and hold on, because there's also the Paxton campaign put a poll out Friday night. We are up 8 points.
8 points.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's where, the Paxton people know what's going on.
Correct.
That poll that they released showing him up 8 is a big deal. But just to set the table for people to understand, March 3rd is this primary in Texas, right? Texas rules state that you have to get 50% or it goes to a runoff.
Right.
And so right now, this is part of the problem. If you're Team Trump, is that this is going to a runoff. No one's going to get 50%. Everybody's, crushed. I think right now Wesley Hunt's at like 18%. Paxton is somewhere in the 20s and Cornyn's 20 to 30. Whatever. They're all in there somewhere like that. Wesley Hunt, I think no question about it, between 15 and 20 max. And so you pretty much know no one's going to get the 50%. So the case to the White House is why now? And that's going to be the hard thing because the establishment folks, the John Thunes, the DC crowd wants him to get involved now. They want to save money saying that it's going to cost them tens of millions of dollars if Paxton wins the primary because it'll make it harder to defend. I don't think that Trump's going to endorse before the March 3rd primary because he knows, look, if he endorses, it's not going to have right now, Cornyn's not in danger of losing the runoff. And I would be surprised. Look, he might, I think, depending on who gets to him last and if the compelling case, but I think the Paxton people were very clear. I've been with you the whole time. I'm up. Don't screw me here.
Well, and here's the other part of this, though. What if Paxton gets 46%, Cornyn gets 35%, and they go to a runoff? Now you're saying to Trump, you endorse the loser, the second, which
right.
Is
that's
not
why
his
I'm
brand,
saying
not his brand. And you add to the fact that 6 months ago, Republicans thought we're picking up 5 House seats in Texas. Now Republicans are thinking we may only win one of those. So if Trump stays out and Paxton wins, you're now putting more House seats at risk that you thought 6 months ago you were going to win. So the issue is, I think, is can Trump and James Blair and Susie Watt really sit there and say, we're going to just watch a potential train wreck in a state we thought might save us?
Yeah.
It's amazing. And if that's on his legacy, that he potentially, I still think Paxton would be favored at the end of the day. But if you lose a Senate seat in Texas to a young 41-year-old star Democrat and you lose these House seats, oh man, that's not a good legacy.
The part about this is the big question, right? So the Thune DC narrative is that Paxton can't win a general against, Tallarico or Jasmine Crockett. I think if I were
against Jasmine.
But right. We all know that. And that's the thing is that if you're the Paxton team, it's not just the primary that you want to show you're up. You want to be telling the White House, look, I've got data that shows that I can beat either one of those people. That's what's driving this, because the whole establishment argument is Paxton can't win a general. But if you can show them that he can, it takes that argument off the table.
Yeah. I will say I talked to one pretty senior Senate Republican campaign official who told me that even if the president comes out today, and this was last week, and endorses Cornyn, they still expect it to go to a runoff. So it's like the work isn't done.
Right. I mean, look, this is the thing that fascinates me about the whole race. Wesley Hunt on a good day is at 20%. On a good day.
Yeah, what is he doing?
That's what I don't get is that he is. I'm a big like. I think he's a rising star. He's got a great story. I don't get like what he thinks.
Yeah.
Why he did this. I still don't, because he is assured it's going to a runoff now, and that's the key thing. One other factor that's worth noting: Tony Fabrizio, the president's pollster, is also Cornyn's pollster.
Cornyn's pollster.
And so the president, Cornyn's team, outside of Thune and all of these establishment folks, has an ace in the hole. They've got Fabrizio, who's got, unfettered access to the president of the United States, and is saying, this guy can win. Here's the deal. And I don't know that the Paxson team has that.
For sure. All right, let's talk about a couple media stories. So sweet karma for a lot of laid off Washington Post reporters. Will Lewis, the much resented CEO and publisher of the Washington Post, got fired over the weekend. This was the final straw by Jeff Bezos. And Lewis is sort of he was spotted walking the red carpet. Oh gosh, walking the red carpet at the Super Bowl parties right after laying off a third of the newsroom. Ouch. So here's a question for you, Sean. Do you know Bezos? I don't know if you have a personal relationship with him.
I've met him.
But do you there's a lot of talk right now. Is he going to sell? What's your thought on that? I don't know. Do you have any?
I don't know what he would sell. I mean, maybe, but I think I just get a kick out of watching these people who work at the Post demanding that they're like, Jeff Bezos is worth this much money. He owes it to us to spend 1% of his net. Like, this explains why their coverage is so stupid of the economy. They don't get the basics. It's his paper. He owns it. You don't tell him what to do with his money. You say, thank you for giving us a job the last 5 years as we failed. So I find the whole thing rather odd. I don't know who would buy it. I think that at some point, part of the reason that they went through this is to get rid of the dead weight, the pieces of the Post that weren't making money, and to try to revive it. He wouldn't have done this, I don't think, or he would have sold off the pieces. Maybe. I know there was an effort to take the sports in the Metro section and fold it into a separate venue or venture. So I don't get the sense. There's no rumors that he's trying to sell. I think he bought it for a reason, to have like a toy to play with.
Except he's not playing with the toy. That's the problem. I mean, one of the biggest criticisms has been, yes, obviously a lot of people in the, who cover media, who write about these things, Dylan Byers at Puck News, Jim Vandehei at Axios, very smart, savvy business of media business brains, saying, yes, the Washington Post needed to change, 100% needed to change, but it needs also strong leadership and strong vision. And one of the big criticisms with Lewis was that what was the strategy? They were talking about doing something with influencers at one point, a third newsroom, and then they never fully did it. And so I guess what I'm hearing more from people is what is Bezos going to do? Can he put leadership in there and show, okay, yes, we need to reform this whole, institution, but what does that look like? And can you get someone who actually gets their hands dirty to try to help navigate this?
I would watch Michael Bloomberg and Bloomberg with the Washington Post.
Do you know something we don't, Dan?
They looked at buying the Post a few years ago.
Certainly,
and I think that they have paywalls. They have just like the Wall Street Journal has a thriving DC presence. You would potentially bring the brand and some of the reporters back and have a robust Washington DC presence with a kind of add in the business side of DC these days. I'll just leave it at that. And they could potentially have something, but you don't need the Post sports section. You don't need a Post Metro section. But I would watch Bloomberg.
So funny because a lot of people are really upset about the sports section. I never actually read it, but
well, it was very. I mean, they had good columnists, and that's why I think, frankly, the funny thing about the rumors were that it was offered by a bunch of rich people to say, "Hey, great, we'll take the sports brand, carry it," and I actually think, considering the number of sports teams in this area, not just professional, but the high school teams in this area alone, the college programs in this area alone, are worthy of a lot of attention. I mean, you could do something. And I frankly, the more I thought about it, I was like, there really is a business covering just DC, DMV, District, Maryland, Virginia sports. And also, I mean, to some extent, even local, the nice thing about it is the proximity is such that you've got, whether it's Bethesda in Maryland, Alexandria, Arlington, Fairfax, DC, it's so geographically tight that you can actually, put a team together to cover a pretty wide or number of opportunities without having to travel far. So I actually think there's a great business model there, but who knows?
Okay, and very quickly, the president has another piece of media news that, Sean, you flagged for us. The president backing Nextstar's bid for Tegna. So big win for FCC chairman Brendan Carr.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I would just say that, look, this was a big fight that was going on where the current FCC rules prohibit any one person from owning more than 39% of affiliates. So, for example, when we had the whole Jimmy Kimmel fight, remember it was Nexstar and Sinclair that held out and said, we're not airing Jimmy Kimmel. That wasn't an ABC decision. That was the people who own the affiliate. So, for example, here in Washington, D.C., WJLA is the ABC affiliate. It's owned by Sinclair, right? So these days, most of your local stations, the NBC, the ABC, the CBS, the Fox station, are owned by somebody else. So Tenga, Nexstar, Sinclair, Gray, I think there's a few others that still own a compilation of them. And there's this merger now between Tenga and Nexstar. Brendan Carr, the FCC, was being urged by some people to allow this because obviously I'm for it. I want more, I want people who actually I like the guys who own Nexstar and Sinclair and Tenga to have more of a say. There are some, I would put faux conservatives who try to oppose the deal. And they lost. And this was a big deal for Brendan Carr. This is a big deal for Nexstar.
Dan, any thoughts on that?
I'm surprised certain people who are objected are considered faux conservatives, but the media consolidation is just happening. The industry is changing so much. I don't have a dog in the fight. I just find it fascinating.
Well, it's very inside baseball, DC, but at the end of the day, it also goes down to who the president's listening to and who he's not. And on big policy decisions, this was a big win for Nexstar, and a big loss for a lot of other people who claim to have the president's ear.
Let's take some questions. Okay. As it stands right now, is the VRA being overturned the only thing that could save the GOP majority in the House?
No, I mean, look, what are we, February? A long time before November, and no doubt Trump will have a few political tricks up his sleeve to try to regain momentum and change the dynamic. But, today it would probably take the voting rights. I'm not even sure the VRA being overturned would save them right now. It would make for a small Democratic majority. But, I mean, there are really credible Republican political operatives who think Democrats now may be looking at 30 to 40 seats. So 20 from the VRA doesn't save you. But again, a long way to go. Just a long way to go.
Yeah, just to back this up, the Supreme Court is taking a look at one aspect of the Voting Rights Act that deals with creating majority-minority districts. So Louisiana is the center of this case, which is basically it created a black Democrat district. And there's a few of those in a lot of southern states where the Voting Rights Act basically forced them, and it all benefits Democrats, right? So when you think about the minorities that represent Congress on the Republican side, John James in Michigan, we just mentioned Wesley Hunt in Texas, Burgess Owens in Utah, like they actually just represent regular districts. It's the Democrats represent districts that were made for them. Jim Clyburn's district in South Carolina, for example, it's a majority minority district. If the VRA is overturned, which I think most people believe it will be, whether it's 6-3 or 5-4,
right?
The bigger question is there time?
Right.
So what I've been told by folks on my side is that there's definitely Louisiana, maybe South Carolina, but it has to go down to when the legislature is going to go back into session and et cetera. I think we can still pick up some seats in Florida. People are still counting on that. I'm still a little skeptical that the state Senate's going to go along. I mean, DeSantis had a hard time the last time getting this through. That's my 2 cents on this. I believe that I think to Dan's point, the economy, if we are right, that in the second and third quarter, it really starts to kick in. That's going to be what we need to save it, not this. But it's going to be on a razor's edge, I believe.
Yeah,
Who-
I was just to sort of piggyback off of that point. I mean, that this campaign operative, Republican campaign operative, I talked to a couple days ago was saying the same thing, Dan, which is like, I was asking, how worried are you about, the ICE, the immigration narrative right now? And he's like, it's February. Like, I'm actually not worried about this at all because it's going to change 50 times over before then. But good. It's
Just
a great
so people
question.
know, though, so the Voting Rights Act during the Civil Rights era, you had, these black populations in southern states that the argument was they're not represented in Congress, even though like in Alabama, they were a third of the population. So they created this where these southern states had to submit their congressional maps to the federal government, to the Justice Department to be cleared. And they had to ensure that the black population, or I think they labeled it as the minority population, had some representation in Congress from that state because they were a sizable part of the public because of racism. Maps were being drawn to kind of ensure that a black member of Congress, wouldn't happen. And so the argument is 60 years later, that is not needed anymore. That to Sean's point, there are black Republicans who run and win. And at what point do states have to stop submitting maps for kind of sins of the past? That's the frame of, and the justices appeared skeptical that nobody supporting the Voting Rights Act could say under what conditions it would no longer apply. Yeah. Because racism is not today, not saying it doesn't exist, is not what it was 60 years ago.
Right. Really fascinating. So, I'm still wondering when we're going to get that ruling.
Great question.
Not till June,
and tariffs. Don't forget tariffs is any,
Yeah, I think we're back into fair game now. I thought, once we got into February, they started releasing rulings again.
Yeah. Let's take another question. Okay. John asks to the panel, how will SAVE Act impact mail-in voting?
Love this question.
My disabled aunt has done mail-in voting for years. What will be adjusted to allow her to continue this prerogative?
Love this question. This was the biggest scam perpetrated on the American people. Absentee ballots have been available to every state and territory in the United States forever. So if you are in the military, you live overseas, you're disabled, you're sick, you have a conflict with work, you've always been able to vote absentee. Every state and territory always provided this. What changed was this no excuse absentee balloting, the length and duration of it, the ability to do it without identification and proper verification is what changed. So to answer your question, John, absolutely nothing. Your disabled aunt will always be able to vote absentee, as will every military member, as will everyone who is overseas, as will everyone who has a work conflict or whatever. It was the biggest scam perpetrated on the American people. What has happened over the last several years. Even Anthony Fauci in the middle of COVID said that voting was never going to be a problem.
So the only difference would be that she would have to request the ballot. Is that right, Sean?
Yeah.
And what does SAVE Act say about how do you verify a mail-in absentee?
No. So it doesn't. So what happens is, first of all, they're two separate issues. The SAVE Act has nothing to do with that. The SAVE Act says two things. First of all, and again, just to be clear, there's two issues. There's the SAVE Act and the Save America Act. The SAVE Act just has to do with photo ID. The Save America Act, which is what the House will take up this week, which is where this is, people are using them interchangeably, but what the president and the Republicans are now pushing for is Save America, which is SAVE Act enhanced, which is both voter ID and proof of citizenship. That's it. So it's like your driver's license. Once you get it once, you can apply by mail and get it renewed. Once you are verified as a voter, the difference now is that if you are overseas, if you are in the military, if you are a disabled aunt of John's, you request your ballot. But once you are registered, you're good to go.
Well, that it is not that black and white, which is why Republicans are scrambling to ensure that the military could vote, because this was someone that they raised in the last few weeks, which is the military uses mail ballots from overseas. So there's a scramble now.
No, that's not. No, what do you mean? It's not being addressed. It was literally. It's well,
that's what I'm saying. They're having to adjust to make sure that is black and white because
it is though.
Right. So look, this is one of the things, like, there's all this sense on the right of fraud, right? It just, they've screamed about it, even though there is no proof of it, but they think it might exist and it could exist. So the
So did
question
your
is going
side
to
in the
be
commission
like,
in 2000, by the way.
what?
When in a bipartisan commission that was co-chaired by Jimmy Carter, it was literally a bipartisan finding that mail ballots are the largest aspect of fraud in voting. So it wasn't a Republican thing; it was a bipartisan
Sean,
thing.
when was that commission?
What,
But-
2004?
It, like, you have to admit though, Dan, like if somebody really like there was a nefarious intent, even if there's been no proof of something like this, you know, that fraud would have changed the results of a certain election, like it wouldn't be that hard. It seems like under the current system to screw with.
Sure, of course. I mean, this has always been.
So it doesn't hurt to
No,
safeguard it, right?
I'm not saying
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I oppose the idea of presenting an ID, right? The left has accused the right has accused the left, right? Just like Democrats said that there was fraudulent voting in Ohio in 2004. I know people at the Kerry campaign who still think that's true. That some of those districts in Southeast Ohio that had 90% turnout, they're like,
No way.
boy, I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
But you know, I just rolled my eyes and said, you know, that's silly. So look, you want to present an ID, it will cause, if your aunt's driver's license expired, going to be a problem. You're going to have to go down there and get that fixed.
But she's already registered, right? So she would still be able to just
You
request.
have
a
to
ballot
present.
and-
You have to present the valid the valid ID. As if your passport or driver's license expired, it's my understanding you could not turn around and still, you have to present the proof. So look, this will be an issue for poor people who don't have driver's license, who can't afford stuff, but they'll figure it out. I mean, who is, well, I'll save it. They'll figure it out.
I was going to say, I'm still not sure that I'm clear about like how often do you have to show the ID? Like how often do you have to go?
Here's the thing:
like,
it's not
if you
going to pass
request-
this year. It's never going to pass the Senate.
Well, they're
Not
going
gonna
to keep the filibuster. So yes, that's true. Okay, let's take. Oh, I guess we're at 9:31.
We're
So
over,
we're
yeah.
at time. Sean, what do you got going on later today?
Well, you want to talk about the halftime show? Andrew Colvett from Turning Point USA
Oh.
tonight to break down the metrics. Was it a success in their eyes? Are they going to do it again? We got a lot to break down with him.
Fun times. All right, we'll be watching, and guys, we'll be back tomorrow at 8:30.
See you
Welcome
then.
to Monday. Thanks for joining.